All right. I assume we're good to go. As always, we're going hybrid. So let's call to order the Thursday, July 7th, 2022 Town Council Work Session. Thank you so much for being here. So we're going to start off as always with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. The flag is behind us. And who would like to lead the way, Stacy? Thank you so much.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Stacy. All right. We always start off with this, but obviously if there's anybody out there that's going to type in a comment or speak if they're here, the town of North Beach welcomes public comment. Please state your name and address. You can place your comments in the chat box or in person. Please limit your comment to 3 minutes pertaining to the agenda items. So let me keep moving. Also, council, let's make sure we have our mics on when we're speaking, so people outside of here can hear us. I'm going to do my best to remember to do mine. Together, we will make it happen. So the first item on the business item is item number A, North Beach Flood Pump Equipment Project, 5th Street. This is really get a discussion and the consensus for next week. Remember, everything we're doing tonight is pretty much discussion for next week. So this is where the work session comes into play. So I'm going to turn this over to Donnie Bowen and also to Lauren, Councilwoman, to take it over from here so he can explain exactly what this is.
All
Are
right,
you?
good evening, everybody. Real quick, some quick background on this project. As you know, we formed a flood committee. The town formed a flood committee back, 2 or 3 years ago now. And this was one of the first big projects that the flood committee tackled. We always have issues that everyone knows have been there a while at 5th Street with the flooding frequently occurring there. The mayor was generous. We put $100,000 in the budget to address this issue probably 2 years ago now. The flood committee has some really talented members on it. So we started looking at this problem, see if we could come up with some in-house solutions. We did that. We came up with a rough design and then some ideas and some solutions that we thought could help alleviate this problem. We took that a little further and we got actually had a set of drawings. In that time frame, we met Senator Jackson, who took over for Senator Miller for our area. He came down, he met with the mayor, talked to him. And, he was very, very wanted to keep Senator Miller's track along with helping out the town of North Beach, helping out the area. So he's like, what can I do to help the town? The mayor asked him when he's here, say, hey, we got a real big problem with flooding. How can I help? You can help us by trying to get us a grant for some flooding situations. So we were successful. We put in for that. We were successful getting a $95,000 grant from MDE. Part of that, it was a great, then that made it up to $200,000 for this project. So, but part of that was we had to get an engineering set of drawings. We couldn't really use the drawings and the design that the flood committee came up with because MDE required us to have an engineering firm do an actual set of drawings and a scope of work and, do a project that we could advertise for bid. So the town went out, we did that. We hired an engineer. We came up with a similar plan that the flood committee had come up with. They looked at it, double checked it, looked at our plan, added a little bit of stuff in there. And we got a plan that we could send out to bid. On May 2nd, we did put out an RFP for the project. We had a pre-bid meeting, May 16th, went over the project. We had 9 potential vendors show up for the pre-bid meeting. We went over all the details and the specs and the plans. And on June 6th, bids were due. Out of those 9 contractors, we had 5 that submitted bids to the town. The bids came in, they ranged from $278,000 to $409,000. Stacy did, I think, put in your package, has the list of bidders and it's on the screen up here. You can see the range of prices that came in. They were required to supply references. We did call around. The low bidder was Tri-Phase Electric out of College Park. And we called around, we checked the references. And when I checked on Tri-Phase, which was a low bidder, They got excellent references and by everyone we called and everyone we contacted. I would recommend that we accept the low bid and move forward with this project. But one of the caveats is that we don't have the, we have approximately 195,000 in the budget. So with this price, the price that came in, even with the low bid, it's going to require us to look at the general fund or come up with the remaining money from other places. So that's what we're going to get Joanne to help with, but we need a council to think about that and kind of give us the okay to look at that and move forward with the project. But we know we're going to have to come up with money from somewhere in the general fund to complete this project. And out of the one thing I'd like to add, $278,915. That didn't really have a contingency in there. Normally on a project like this, we might want to add 10% contingency. So we'll probably be looking at around 300,000 to secure for this project. Like I say, 95 is a grant. We had 100,000 in the budget currently, so we'll need roughly 100,000 to complete this project probably.
And again, a goal for tonight is discussion, get all your questions answered, make sure you have everything in front of you for next week, next Thursday. We have, obviously Jay out there, these guys have gone through this thing extensively. So Lauren, what would you like to add? And then council, please fire away your
So
questions.
let me add
The
just
only-
3 things real quick,
Go
and then I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. But 3 things real quick, the factors, we looked at this project to count for the council to consider. We looked at this project probably a year and a half ago. And just cost alone with inflation, with the equipment and labor costs, they went up roughly 30%. So if you take the 200,000, add 30% inflation, you're at 260 already. MDE required us to do an engineered project, so we had to pay for an engineer. So that took a little bit of money out of the project. Plus with that, they required one contractor. When we were looking at the 200,000, we were looking at subbing out and maybe the town being the general contractor. But when you have a project like this and you hire a general, you can figure 15% overhead for the general contractor to manage the project. So that's already, you're at 45%. So, the price sounds like it came in high, but actually with today's market, it's probably right about what it should be at the 278. In the first design, we looked at the duct bill because the duct bill is an important part. And what that duct bill does, it stops the bay from coming back into the stormwater pipe. The duct bill has been on since 2002. It's kind of dry rotted, it has some holes in it. It holds most of the time, but we do have failures with it where the tide actually comes in and fills up the stormwater pipe and it's not doing its job. So in this new project, a new bid that we put out, that's also installing a brand new duct bill on the current discharge pipe for the gravity discharge. And like I say, questions, and Lauren, please feel free to add what I missed or add.
No, you
anything you'd like.
you actually addressed what I was going to add, these extenuating circumstances, with the inflation going up, it wasn't what we had expected when we initially scoped out this project, and then also adding the duct bill. So that's what I was going to mention. So that's it.
If anybody has any questions, feel free to ask. And
Is the duct bill going to be the straight duct bills or going to be the curled one?
this is a curled duct bill. It's supposed to be a better design where it takes less head pressure to open it up.
Okay.
Because as the town, it's 600 feet of pipe there,
Mhm.
but it has hardly any elevation to it. So it's no pressure, no head pressure to push it open. But they do have a little bit better design that allows it for open quicker. And we were thinking at one time, actually even sealing it off and not putting a duct bill, but I've been down when we had heavy rains and it floods back up to 4th Street by the Boys and Girls Club, where the duct bill does actually open and it allows a lot of water to get out gravity wise to help us with, when you're pumping, but when you get that heavy 4-inch rain, that does open up. And I got videos showing that, you get quite a bit of water come out. So that we felt we should leave the duct bill for hurricane or, really bad storms because it would help us in those situations.
Yeah, no, I remember when we had the flap gate and the original duct bill, we always had a problem with the sand silting either it open
Right.
or silting the duct bill in so that it couldn't unfurl.
Right.
So that was just the thing of just making sure that if we do that, just make sure we maybe dig out in there to make sure we clear out
We,
enough of the silt to make sure it can fully actuate.
right. We
Right
do
over
have luckily we do have a maintenance dredge for that.
Okay.
And when we did the project in 2010, put the diesel pump on the beach, we put, the rock around there. So that does help with the sand. But
Okay.
that was a problem before we did that. But we do have a 6-year, it renews every 6 year and we have a maintenance dredge for that area so we can dredge out around it also.
Nice.
Questions?
So to be more accurate with the numbers, and then obviously we like some input from Joe, is if we do put that 10% contingency in there, we're looking at $112,000. So just to be clear, what we're looking for next week, once we just fully discuss it tonight with also Joe's input. So when you look at Donnie's 10% contingency. Add that in, that's 27. Roughly $112,000. If the 10% does kick in, which I don't, based off what, I don't know if it will or not, but the reserve or the contingency is 10 and at least will protect us to move forward with the project.
Just so I'm not confused, that number does not include the 10%. And then if we go with it and there's an overrun, then we have to come back and approve the overrun?
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
That's what we're trying to avoid, not have to come back and ask you for money. Yep, but thanks for asking that question. The 278,915 is the bid from the contractor to do what's in the scope of work, right?
So if you add the contingency of 10%, it takes it to $306,806.51. We have a commitment of 195 already. And the difference would be the $112,000 that we would take from reserve to fully fund the project, to move forward, to help with the flooding down on the corner of, right there where Fifth and Bay meet.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I don't have a calculator. What, does that 112 include the 10% or no?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm sorry. Yes,
Okay,
it does include
thank
it.
you.
No, absolutely.
I called they were required to submit 3 references, and everyone I called, they worked a lot for put in bigger chillers, same size motors. They've installed pumps larger than this. They installed some the same size, but every reference I got was excellent. And they even, said the firm came up with ideas to save money, and they came up with ways to not put the systems out of service for a long period of time and get the work done, ahead of schedule. So going by the references that we, checked on, that they definitely have the experience, and had all positive responses come back.
And this system is the multiple pump system, right? That's
2
gonna go down
pumps.
there.
Yeah, it'll be
pumps, so they
2
can like
2 brand new
stage-
15 horsepower pumps.
Okay,
And another, with the new engineer firm, we had talked about adding a VFD because it's so low head there.
Mhm.
So you don't have much room in the pipe between on and off. So what we're going to do is put VFD drives, which that'll allow the pumps to come on,
okay,
but they don't have to come on at full speed.
okay,
They can come on and run at half speed. They can come on and run at 25%. And then if you get a downpour and the flood, then the level will be monitored by transducer. So as your level goes up, the pump speeds up. So if
Okay.
the level goes down, the pump goes down, but it doesn't cut on off, on off, on off, and it'll save. And
The
long
wear
run,
and
it'll
tear on
save us
the
a lot
pump,
of
yeah.
wear and tear and electric bill too.
Yeah.
Because you might be able to run the pumps at 50% of their design electric use. But that'll be, efficient for us, and then it won't, because that pipe, the only bad thing about the pipe is it's 600 feet long.
Yeah, but in short and squat.
But it's short and squatty, so it doesn't allow you to fill up 10 feet deep and then pump it all the way down. You only
Mhm.
have 3 feet of operating range in
Yeah.
there. So we're kind of limited, but the VFD drive was, the control panel itself is probably around $50,000, but that'll eliminate a lot, it'll help us on that part.
Do you feel comfortable with that going in, that you guys will be able to do any of the routine maintenance and whatnot on that without any problems?
They're the same size roughly that were in there in
Okay.
2002, but they weren't installed correctly.
Okay,
But they're the same size pumps, maybe a little smaller, same horsepower.
okay,
So we can pick them up with a backhoe if we need to pull them out.
okay,
And
because we know that happens all the time.
the control panel that was spec'd is also by a vendor that we currently use for
Okay,
water and
sweet.
sewer system. And the pumps are flight pumps, which were recommended by the Annapolis consultant, and they're like top of the line for, as far as the pump manufacturer. They
Okay.
were the most expensive, but they're, for that situation, they were the best pump for the fit. And we have went up Lauren, Councilwoman Cavalier went with me to Annapolis. And they happened to do a big stormwater study up there, and Flight were like design spec for all their jobs up there. So Flight's been around for,
This was ABM,
yeah.
ABM, right? So they did the whole flood plan for Annapolis and it's working out pretty well.
But Flight's a common pump. It's been around for, you know, a long time.
Well, yeah, I've heard of the name.
Yeah.
So,
So they have a ceramic type impeller, like I said, they're probably, but actually we accepted a or equal, and the or equal to match Flight spec. The price, everybody went with the design pump. Nobody even tried to submit the or equal because they were pretty similar when they got the ceramic impeller and all the design that we put in there. So it's good. We got what we wanted. We didn't have to fight, you know, or equal type pump. So all 5 contractors use the spec equipment. So, in their bids.
All right, thank you. Council members, any other questions? And again, our goal for next week is to accept the recommendation from Donnie Bowen, also the flood committee, and then also to approve the increase for next week. Any questions about that before we move on? Nope, seeing none, let's move on. Let's move right into item number B, resolution 22-05. And again, this is a discussion for next week. Resolution of the mayor and town council of the town of North Beach, Maryland, to rename the stormwater and flood mitigation advisory committee as the flood committee. I'm going to turn this over to Lauren.
This is an easy one. So that's a mouthful. Try to say it and you'll see that it is. So the flood committee, we've been talking, and also when we were doing the banner for Earth Day, we were like, does it have to say all of this? Or will we just say SFMAC, which is the acronym we've used for the flood committee? But no one knows what SFMAC means. It's not intuitive on its face. Like, what does it mean? That's also a mouthful. So we decided we wanted to come up with a name that when you say it, you know what it means. So came up with a flood committee.
Okay, I just have a comment. I think I agree with you 100% because every time I have to say it, I have to actually look it up because I forget what the acronym is. So that would be helpful.
Yep.
My contribution to this conversation, though, is I think the name should be stormwater. And the reason I'm saying that the name should be stormwater is because it aligns with the information that is within the Southern, the sustainability, gosh, I write it so many times, you think I knew it by now. Sustain Maryland Award. And there are actions in there. And actually, I think also that stormwater, it's just more accurate. I've learned a lot in the research that I've done on that particular thing, which is not in discussion tonight, and that'll come up in August or September, whenever we decide to do that. So my contribution is we should just make the alignment with the terms. And that is the term that's everybody acknowledges.
So we actually talked in depth about this, but the way we see it, you know, this is a flood committee to deal with flooding. And that's kind of like the larger overarching term. And there's 2 types of flooding we're addressing. One is caused by stormwater and one is caused by coastal flooding. So stormwater and coastal flooding are under the umbrella of flood committee. So if you were to say the stormwater and flood committee, it would be redundant. So that's why, I mean, perhaps we could define flood in this resolution to say this includes flooding from stormwater and from coastal. Perhaps that would address.
Yeah, my comment is that we align everything. That's all. And the term that's used up and down the state and everywhere else is stormwater. And they recognize flooding under that term. I mean, we could sit here and split hairs forever and ever.
Yeah.
I just think that when it comes to communicating with everybody else on what we need for money and everything else, stormwater is just going to resonate a little bit more. That's all.
Okay. Well, you know, stormwater doesn't always mean flooding, right? Stormwater, we could talk about green infrastructure, we can talk about stormwater infrastructure, but it doesn't necessarily, we're not necessarily talking about flooding when we talk about stormwater. We could be talking about best management practices to protect the environment. You know, we could be talking about all kinds of things when we talk about stormwater. And what we really want to focus on, because really the flood committee is, we want to stay tightly focused and narrowly focused on our mission, which is to address and mitigate flooding. Some flooding caused by stormwater problems, some and rain and bigger, more aggressive, more violent storms, and other flooding caused by coastal waters. So again, I understand your point about wanting to align it, and I do think that we could maybe work a definition into this resolution, but I don't think we should call this the Flood and Stormwater Committee. We're trying to get away from that.
Oh, I'm saying we should call it the Stormwater Committee and not, and take
The
flood out
storm-
of there altogether.
But we're the Flood Committee. We're not the Stormwater Committee. We're the Flood Committee.
Well, let's open this up for discussion for everybody else, since we're all here.
I-
Any? starting-
On-
Mickey?
On mine, I see flood as a negative term. So like if you hear the flood committee, it's like, wait, you guys have flooding? And it's just one of those like instant things. Not that flooding is negative or positive. It could be both. Because I was thinking too, it's like, why did they pick flood? It's like I would have done stormwater, and I was thinking of more long-term grants, and it's more fluid. And also then if we get flooding in itself managed, stormwater will keep changing from construction to street work to clogs and drains, where to me flooding, when I hear flooding, I think large scale problems. When I think stormwater, I can even be simple as the drainage ditches along the road need to be cleaned out. That could not be flooding an area, it could be slowing down flow. And that's just in my mind how I see it. Because like, to me, like the end goal of this is looking at the whole town, even if it's like one street has a problem. Like after we fix everything, then somebody builds a house and they fill in with sod the natural drainage ditch there, which has happened over time in lots of places in town. That wouldn't necessarily flag a floodwater, but it'd be something that we would look at when we do the stormwater, the whole stormwater plan townwide, if that makes sense. So.
The problem is that flooding is caused by coastal flooding as well, which does not fall within the definition of stormwater. Stormwater is rain-induced flooding. Coastal is, wind and wave action. Okay, so I mean I hear what you're saying, and I understand that stormwater is a more common term. I also understand that flooding could be, or is possibly seen as a negative term, but we do have big problems in this town with flooding. Maybe to your point, Mickey, we could do a flood mitigation committee. And that, kind of addresses one of your concerns at least, that we're not trying to flood the town, we're trying to mitigate the flooding in town. So that's my response to that.
John, Ken?
Yeah, I'm going to go along with what Lauren was saying, is that flood is a result, stormwater is a cause. And it is just like Lauren was saying, we don't only have stormwater coming, we've got bay rise coming from the other direction. So it's really flood. And I think a good compromise is flood mitigation committee. Now, doesn't mean that in the vernacular, we're going to just call it the flood committee. But I think as an official title, it gets a little bit more of the action, flood mitigation,
So-
whatever that's going to take.
So you made an interesting comment that caught my attention. So you said that flood was the result and stormwater was the cause.
A cause
Yes.
of the flooding.
And so if we're looking at systemic fixes, wouldn't we be looking at causes?
But if you're looking for the mitigation, which is the activity in which you need to do, which is the end result of what you're looking for, is to mitigate the flooding, whatever the causes are, storm, bay, sewer lines busting, I don't know, is a variety of causes that are involved. And I think it'd be better for people to understand what it is there, the committee is there for. It is to mitigate flooding. And whatever the causes are, that's how it's going to get addressed. So those are my thoughts on it.
I don't know that I feel super strongly either way. Being a layman, I guess flood does seem to make more sense from the perspective of trying to encompass everything that we're dealing with versus stormwater is maybe a little more focused. I think either way, I like the idea of maybe better defining specifically what we're talking about within the actual resolution itself. I think that's a good way to go, regardless of what we actually name it. On the flip side, I do like staying consistent with what's happening throughout the rest of Maryland. And if everyone's using stormwater, there's some advantage there too, I guess. But I don't know how much that helps, but I guess I don't really have a strong opinion one way or the other. I think I could be swayed either way.
So let me just add to that. When we went to the conference, I spent a significant amount of time pretty much running around the conference thing. I think I needed a T-shirt that says "Got Money." And so I was trying to figure out where all these sources of funding would come from that we would potentially need to do that. And so a lot of the discussion really cues off of certain terms. And I know I'm splitting hairs on that. I'm just thinking down the road, when we get ready to start looking for money, it's going to be a lot easier for me to go somewhere else because I've already started talking to green infrastructure people and things like that. But it's still going to be a lot easier to say stormwater than to go into this whole diatribe about we have a committee that just fixes problems and not looks at solutions in terms of root causes.
I don't know. I'm sitting here and I've been reading through the Maryland website, and I mean, they use both terms, so I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on it, but I guess I'm a little indifferent. It really doesn't. Most of the talk on here is mainly about stormwater. There's a few mentioning of flooding, but it's mainly stormwater, and that is what's used consistently throughout the state. So I don't want to lose any sleep over it. So let's just figure it out.
So we had a discussion. Next week, we got to move forward with something, take this, add some changes to this. You know, with the verbiage in there, get it back out, get it back to Stacy to get it back out to the group, get it back on board docs. And then we'll move forward with what the consensus is next week. But for us to move forward, absolutely.
Can I just say this?
Hold on
Can I-
one second.
Can I just say
Go ahead,
this?
Greg. Yes.
I'm looking at the Maryland Department of Environment, and right here, the first thing they talk about, none of it, only one thing on there says flooding, but I'll read this real short. Maryland's first stormwater management law was passed in 1982 and focused on controlling flooding associated with new development, stormwater BMPs implemented under early laws. So flooding falls under the stormwater management law.
So I'm going to respond to that. Okay, the EPA definition of stormwater is surface water in abnormal quantity resulting from heavy falls of rain or snow. So does stormwater, do stormwater problems or stormwater runoff from construction sites that are uncontrolled cause flooding? Yes, absolutely. That is one cause of flooding. The other cause of flooding is what we had talked about, which is flooding that comes from the bay, that's caused from coastal surge, that's caused by wind, that's caused by waves. So the reason, again, I'll try to explain this in a better, more cogent way, but flooding is the overarching umbrella term. Okay, there's also in the mission of the what we now call the SFMAC committee, we were developed to address flooding, like it or not, whether it's negative or not. That's what we're in the business of doing. And again, the flooding, we're addressing flooding that is caused from stormwater from further up in town, and we're addressing flooding that's caused from coastal surges, wind and rain events.
My only response to that is, as I just stated, stormwater law in Maryland. Maryland is where we fall into it. So that's it.
Okay,
Again, we can sit back here and go over this all night, but I'm not going to do that.
Nope.
So there you go.
Good, Jay. I'm sorry, you got to come up to microphone. I apologize. There's people online.
Jay Lovelace, on property at 9307 Bay Avenue. When you have flooding at 9th and Bay and 5th and Bay, it is flooding. You can call it what you want. It's a flood. Okay, when you stormwater, you aren't going to say, oh, we have stormwater down on Bay Avenue. We're flooding at Bay Avenue. You got cars underwater. That's flooding. And that's what we are as a flood committee.
Thank you.
That's the heart of the matter. The heart of the matter is we have the whole town here that we have to consider. And that doesn't say that we don't have ultra focus on what's going on the waterfront and what is important to that part of the community. But it's the whole community that we have to look at.
Absolutely.
I think we got time to think about this, Mayor, until this comes around
All
next
right,
week. But
so-
at least we got it out there. So
It's out there. Y'all need to continue the discussion and we'll bring it back next week. All right,
thank you, sir.
let's move on. All right, now I'm gonna turn this over to, next one is Town of North Beach election forms, D and E. And we're gonna turn over to our town attorney, Alyssa.
Good evening. It was brought to my attention by Ms. Myler that you have been using, and I'll try and. So it was brought to my attention by Ms. Laws that don't exist in the state law. I do in the state law. So the question was, do you want to just simplify the forms to delete all the stuff that isn't current? Or to enact provisions that has apparently been the practice, judging from your forms. So in order to do that, we developed an ordinance that adopted provisions that incorporated the things that were in the list of the forms, best of our ability. And we revised the forms to refer to the new. Which tonight you have both things on your agenda for discussion. I think just the focus, obviously feel free to any of these documents that you like. Focus should be more on ordinance because the forms are going to follow. Particular by going through the proposed article and and again, you also can discuss anything. But the things that I would draw to your attention or ask for your particular guidance on are subject matter, the things that are in here that you just brought into actions which are, less complex. And of the stuff that you do want to keep in here, dollar amounts and the deadlines and things like that, where for the most part, they are, when I say arbitrary, I don't mean that I had no justification. But there are things that you in your judgment collectively may have a very different view of.
Yeah, let's go through the ordinance that we have in our possession. Everybody has it on board docs. So because what I want to do is let's discuss this at this work session to get through this because we need to move forward, as you know.
Yeah, so what it does is require the appointment of the treasurer. I think that's not particularly of the campaign needs to be a treasurer who is registered, signed up with their address and their the town can.
So
Then-
if we start on the first page,
Yep.
let's go back to the first page. What do we need to point out to council now that on mine, I see these under section 1, appointment of treasurer, line A, designation. Is there anything, what do you want them to see on here that if there's anything, and then
I
go,
guess they just, no, on first page, nothing.
All
There's some, there's a chapter 8 in the title that needs to be, it will need to be revised. We're going to get a new chapter number.
All right,
And then there's public.
right. So on page 2, what is it you need to
So
point out?
page 2, I need to know whether you collectively agree that you should retain your practice of requiring the appointment of treasurers for camp.
All right, so we've all ran for office, some more than others, different forms of government. I don't know of too many elections that does not require a treasurer. Now, inside of a municipality, it's a lot smaller. You're not, we're not raising hundreds of thousands of dollars like the commissioners maybe, or the sheriff's race. I do not have a problem with the treasurer. It's been that way. It's not broken to me, but this discussion is for you here, that we can work out some of these items tonight that we can get back to Alyssa. So any input on the treasurer part?
I just have a simple question about treasurer. What's the qualification for treasurer? Just your spouse?
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, I was saying here, it's a resident of North Beach.
Excuse me, I apologize.
Yeah, the qualifications are in the document.
Yeah,
So,
Yeah.
Shall not be a treasurer, campaign manager. By the way, that's a little sub issue that you have to escalate some political committees. And whether or not you want the treasurer to voter of the town. Or to have to reside in the town. Basically, the treasurer has to be a resident of the town, a registered voter of the town, and required to, file this form to register. Have to manage all of the campaign contributions for that candidate.
so on page 2, under C2, says treasurer shall be, what's crossed out on mine is a treasurer shall be a registered voter of the town.
I think that was.
All right. Hold on, I'll print out both of them. Don't think so. Well,
Because that's already addressed in A4. So I can see why it'd be struck. It's just
Okay,
redundant.
okay, perfect. As you go up top, where it
Yeah.
says the treasurer may, right, so we're just getting rid of the redundancy.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, none of these are Lauren stuff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, nobody, yeah, You're right.
Oh, okay, so. I guess the Lauren things are.
yeah, we
Yeah,
don't have them.
I clarified that. Okay.
And a lot of those clerical stuff. All right,
So Alyssa, is the residency requirement for the treasurer something that's typical? Because it seems a little, I don't know, extreme maybe for me. I mean, I can obviously see the candidate, obviously, but the treasurer, I don't really see a,
I think that may go back to further back when it was like this person, yeah, I back them. I also live in town. My opinion, like, says they're a good candidate. Sort of like the treasurer was also the like, hey, yeah,
a double check.
yeah, like a double check. It's not just random. It's like nobody's heard of them, and then they see like the treasurer name, and it's like,
it's a voter.
yeah. So it's more or less saying like to other voters, it's like, yeah, there's another voter in town that believes this person should be there. And I feel like goes back probably a long time. Joanne, what are your thoughts? You've been here forever too. Yeah.
Okay.
There's really no, but continue on. Yep.
Most times it's been most people's spouses, I'm gonna say, honestly. Thinking back through all my years of seeing all the signs. So,
Yeah, and I'm not plus one way or the other to have the treasurer to be a resident within the town or not. If it is, great. If not, I don't.
Right.
Doesn't bother me. But the one thing that I'm just reading and I just want to get clarification on is dealing with C2. When we talk about the treasurer of a candidate who cannot be the treasurer, campaign manager, or another candidate or slate or hold office in any political committee, or unless the political committee is appointed by the candidate's filing. that leaves it very broad. That person cannot participate at all in any other political campaign whatsoever. Anywhere. Is not talking about a town campaign. That makes sense. If the person is barred for not, riding 2 horses. But the way this is written is that person couldn't participate, let's say in the county or in the state or in the national as any sort of part of the committee. So I think maybe we need to focus that a little bit more on what we want to avoid is internal, a conflict of interest within the actual campaign here in town.
So if I only prevents him from being the
Treasurer.
treasurer or the campaign manager.
Not involved.
Right,
Treasurer.
but it doesn't say of what, any political committee, that's any political committee, state, local,
Treasurer.
federal.
Treasurer,
Or
campaign manager.
treasurer,
Yeah,
campaign
tran-
manager.
tran- I'm just want to make that clarification. That's
That's-
just one thing I was
Should be
looking
one
at.
too.
It said, if they, or, part of the Republican National Committee and they happen to be, that, and be part of our town, cool.
Treasurer,
But yeah,
treasurer.
treasurer campaign. I just want to get that clarified that we're not restricting anyone who actually may be involved in political campaigns outside of the town aren't able to do what they want to do. That's only the only thing I want to say.
All right.
If it ever happens, but that's the point of writing laws.
All right,
You
what
never know.
else? Any other? Keep going.
Sure, why not?
Yes,
I
I would think,
I guess anybody object to not being in there, I guess is,
no.
it's not broke, don't try to fix it. Simple.
All right, so are we still on page 2 or go to page 3?
Also, anything they want to. So. Measure on page 3, that highlighted section
Mhm.
is a thing that. $100 is, I believe. So the question is, do you want to keep number? Are you good with it?
This is gonna sound silly. Well, it's not even check, it's because the check leaves a paper trail, which is, I think what this was trying to say is like,
Yeah.
I want a paper trail.
Yeah.
That means I can't like use a credit card or like a Venmo, or like if somebody have a PayPal account or something like that set up where there would be a paper trail on that end, it says must be check. I think it's just trying to avoid the must be something other than cash.
Okay.
I don't know if that makes sense to like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense because we're not dealing with the old Nixon, suitcase full of money thing.
Yeah.
anymore. We're not doing that anymore. But definitely, I think it sort of seems to be in the reverse, is that anything but cash over over $100.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
everything is tracked now except for cash, which none of us use anymore, pretty much. I have no problem with $100.
This is also a really nitpick thing, but what about something like Bitcoin, right? If somebody gives you Bitcoin, technically there's an equivalent dollar value to it, I guess, if you were to
Yeah, but
change
then
that
it
for something,
changes.
but- So
It-
again, this is like a nitpick, but
Yeah, it does have a value. I mean, it is appointed in a value in dollars. So, I mean, you can do it in other currencies, but I know it works. I know it's just not a currency, but
Just have cash in there. I mean, just,
Okay, so I'm
just
gonna
have cash.
say
No
treasurer may not
Bitcoins.
accept a tax contribution in
Yes.
excess of $100.
I'm
Yep,
not
next.
accepting any Bitcoins.
All right,
that
next.
keeps it simple.
Yeah,
Talk
let
about
me
C.
go down and see, we're talking about the committee and political club, directly or indirectly. So you could have committees and political clubs that spend $25 and you don't deem that significant enough to require them to go to the trouble of filing a form. That number should be higher or lower, let me know.
Hard enough to get
Who's
voters.
doing it?
Right?
It's hard enough to get voters.
I don't-
people,
I don't know that have a lot of political clubs and committees
No.
that operate in the town. So you could decide you just don't want to address them at all.
Is, I was gonna say, is this required?
You're not required to do.
Why don't we take it out? Why does it
I'd
need
be
to- why
okay
does it
taking
need to
that
be there?
out.
No.
Just take it out.
C's gone. Next.
Shoot.
So concomitantly with that, do you then want to remove the requirement of a treasurer being appointed on a town forum for a treasurer of a political campaign or club? And a
Yes,
political-
yes,
Yeah,
so
yes.
delete
At
that
least,
too.
at least have them, yeah.
Yes.
If we ever get to the point where we're having political clubs and whatnot, we have larger issues at hand here.
Like political clubs, I'm like,
I'm
cheers.
I'm out of
Welcome to
town.
the 1800s. I mean, like, well,
I'm done. I'm finished. I'm finished.
Okay, so now we're on page 4. I think you do want to keep,
yes,
All right.
yes.
okay. All contributions, expenses of candidates, you're not counting your. House. Um,
Yes.
treasurer,
I guess it's just for
but they're
recording.
not-
yeah.
There's no limitation on that.
No.
So there's no limit. It
limitation.
just has to be recorded. Just has to be.
So subsection 5 is again about loans to. For a person, 2,500 for. At the right number.
I can tell you, I don't have, I mean, just, it's fine for, but whatever y'all, yeah,
I don't see any reason why to change it.
just leave it the way it is. Leave it the way it is.
I mean, it's.
Next.
No.
Yes. Telegrams.
Yeah, that's something.
Telephoning,
I'm gonna
telephoning.
go-
Yeah, I commented on that.
Change it to say, for filing fees, postage, electronic communications, telephone calls, travel, so, I don't wanna put an et cetera in there, which I think was.
Oh, that was just for you.
Okay.
you would think of.
Yeah, I'll have an actual
Never say
All
list,
right,
and it will be in modern terms.
Yes, okay.
at least get to
Okay.
1900.
Won't include telexes, it won't include faxes.
Oh, wow, tell it.
Stace coaches. All right. All right, where are we on
On
5?
the express.
All right, well, we're on 5, everybody.
So on page 5, there are some elections, some references to political parties that need to come out.
Yep.
Have any?
And some other, need to call your attention to, but if any of you have noticed something.
I mean, the signing the reports is, I mean, that's all basic stuff here.
Yeah, then the.
We don't have political parties, thank goodness. All right,
That is one of the best things.
major,
Right,
huge.
so
Huge.
good.
All right, we're on 6.
On 6, there are again some.
Grammatical
misspellings
or,
and things
yep.
that, I really appreciate.
Oh, she good to that now. Trust me.
I
Yawns
don't
at
see
me.
anything else that needs. Section B.
Stacy, just stay on top. So you're, if you, I know you see this every election. So is there anything you see? I know you've already met or talked to Alyssa, but
But then again, on page 7, we're back to numbers. Or you want to pick numbers that
$10.
tend to encourage people to file on time.
Obviously, page 7B, $20, $10, $10, $250.
I think
Again,
this was put in there quite a while back.
you think?
That's not gonna hurt, but I think if you make the first one 50 and then maybe 20 for the next one and then 500 instead of 250, that might get someone's attention. That's always the first time to punish someone for something.
All right, so I'm fine with the changes, council
Yeah,
member.
just-
Everybody good?
So wait, 50
Supposed to be.
one,
2020,
and how much per day? after
20.
that?
20.
20. And in two, how much?
20.
20
20,
and then 500.
and then 500.
All right.
The impression that if you didn't make the deadline, you just couldn't.
Nope. Nobody ever
Stacy will
misses
be looking out for you to go past
That's
that
right.
deadline.
Christmas party money. No, I'm teasing. All right,
Do tend
all
to
right.
miss deadlines by a day or two,
all right,
but I think, yeah.
all right, 8, page
Okay,
8.
In 8, there's a reference to a
4.44, yep.
Cut out another place that
All right,
there's, record keeping. Right.
Hmm.
And then the prohibited practices, you can't promise somebody anything, their vote, you can't receive or solicit anything for your vote, you can't,
Really? You sure about that? Sorry, I couldn't
I can't
resist.
remember if it's graft or bribery. It's one of the two.
right, so that's basically what's prohibited in subsection 11, those things that reasonable people can agree with. that. Something I missed that you.
Nope.
um,
so we're on 9.
let me know. Well, on page 9, number 7, how many dollars do you want to limit?
To their own campaign.
No, it says except for contributions, so I can.
I don't think. I mean, I don't think.
They let people contribute whatever they want.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is that
Yeah.
a
because
consensus?
trust me, nobody's gonna be writing $500 checks to anyone. So
Did I miss something during a campaign one day? No,
go
9.
back.
Sorry.
What do you have, 8?
Yeah, I'm gonna go through and take out the committee.
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
And then 9, we're taking out 7,
What's the?
and then let's 10.
I think 12, the advertising is probably not particularly controversial.
Yeah, it has that too.
Right, well, right, I'm gonna do a search, a global search.
And yeah, definitely what's one am I looking at? Section 11A5, there's a lot of arcane language in there.
I will go through that.
Multigraph, photographed.
Yes, I did.
Dodgers.
Multi-graph
I
because
was like-
I had to look it up, and when I looked it up, I couldn't figure out why it was in. here,
Yeah.
so-
Stagecoach, everything else. All right.
Yeah.
All right, so let's go to the,
So last page violations. The candidate has been found or decided to have engaged in a prohibited practice, and those are those things on page 8 about paying or accepting things for your vote. To run again, I don't know how you feel about that.
Who's the decider?
It would be a court ultimately,
Oh,
right? The town would make an initial determination, but the candidate.
oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
a person who violates this chapter is guilty of a misdemeanor and upon conviction shall be punished as provided in section 1-17 of this code.
Right, so you can make these, so the first question is, would you rather make it a municipal infraction? Typically, election violations are misdemeanor. So this is more typical. And also, you don't have to go with the punishment in I have a specific to be different and. I
What is
can tell you what
117?
1-17 says.
Shooting from the hip, I say we leave it there. We gotta try to have some type of,
Hammer.
yeah, we just can't.
Yeah. We
Don't
can
be
leave
the
it there.
Wild
Just-
Wild
yeah,
West.
absolutely.
Yeah, I don't recommend taking it.
All right, we'll leave it there.
No, no,
Um,
just
tell
make sure
you
it's.
what,
Ken might decide to put his spurs on, and jump on his horse.
Right away.
You have to laugh. I mean, listen to this.
Okay, a person found guilty of a misdemeanor may upon conviction be fined not more than $1,000 or confined in Calvert County Jail. That's obsolete.
I like
Leave
that.
it in
For
there.
a
Yeah.
period of 90 days or both, unless a lesser amount is set by law. So.
I'm not running out.
So you can eliminate the jail?
No.
Yeah, leave
Nope,
it in there.
leave it.
But as it is.
Leave it.
No, no, no.
We'll be on the front
Leave
page
it-
of the paper when this hits.
So because it's a misdemeanor and it's a criminal thing, it's gonna go to court and that, the nature of that fine is gonna ultimately just be decided by a court.
District
not
court
by
judge.
you.
All right.
Um,
Next, leave it in there.
District court judge.
That's all
probably.
I got.
And then this is emergency, which means we need 5 of us at least
Yes.
next week to vote in favor of passing
All,
it.
yes, all 6 will be
Correct?
there and all 5 will, I mean, hopefully all 6 passes. Or-
So I'm gonna make the corrections, and get it to you. Monday. if
Worst
not-
case Monday.
Right,
Worst case
so-
Monday.
So if you all
Yeah,
collectively
do it
want to
hour.
write back to me and say that's not what I meant, or I noticed this after our discussion, then we should have time to come to some. consensus,
Absolutely.
I hope, before your meeting, so, because it's an emergency, you have to introduce it.
Yeah, I would think
It's
that would
not
have to be
major
drop
stuff.
dead done by Wednesday.
Yeah.
Tuesday, great. Monday, wonderful.
All right,
So
Wednesday.
I'm gonna get this to you as soon as,
all right.
probably not gonna be tonight.
Shoot, nope, shoot for Monday. And this way we have 3 days, 4 days. All right,
So I'm sort of similar on the forms, but given what we said tonight, I feel free to discuss them, but I'd rather, those don't have to be acted on next Thursday, so.
They-
When you don't have.
so we have
All
to,
right, so I will.
Do we have to approve the form?
as a package, so we can start giving out the package.
So, right, you don't, that's what I'm
Okay.
thinking, you don't actually have to.
Okay.
Right. Yes,
So, but I'm gonna modify them to be consistent with the new ordinance and to correct all the things you noticed. And I'll try to get those two at the same time so you can look at them, but I don't think they actually require. an
Mhm.
action,
No.
all right.
which is-
So stay tuned. We'll have it
Um,
all back out to you no later than COB on Monday.
I have one thing on that for the affidavit saying like, we don't plan to spend more than X.
Yeah.
On here, it's 300. With the way things are now, did we want to bump that up a little bit? Like with the way, like how much signs cost now, just to make it, if you just wanted to run and get some sign, yeah, that's what I was thinking, Greg, was 500.
What are you thinking?
About moving up to 500.
500 seems reasonable. Well, I think you deleted.
Yeah.
Th-
This is for the reporting requirement.
right?
So, and on here, like in the
Where's
one
that?
forms, it was, if we don't plan to accept or spend more than 300 on the one form, then we don't need a file, then we don't have to report.
Make that 5.
I would say 5, I think is fair. Because like trying to get things printed or signs made nowadays with the way shipping is and supply logistics on everything, 5 may be a stretch anyway.
Get it?
Right,
Yeah.
all right.
1,000
Look for,
thoughts?
5 or 1,000
Fine
doesn't
with
bother me.
either way.
1,000 means many people won't have any headache with making filing deadlines because they won't have to file at all. They just may have to keep. just
Stacy, what do you
something.
say? I mean, after many elections you've been through. Right.
Door hangers. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
I would go, let's, I think 1,000. I do.
Yeah, I'm
I think
okay
it's-
with 1,000.
Yeah.
Make it 1,000. It just.
Because
All right.
I'm the only one who probably didn't have a spouse treasurer in the past couple.
You have
and
one now.
honestly-
You have one.
Yeah, which at that point it was hard. It's like, okay, look, I don't plan to spend this much. Do you want to deal with? It's like, but I have to deal with the money end of it. And it's like, my goal is for you not to have to do any paperwork. Just so
All
you
right.
don't have to report. Like, that's my goal. I want to minimize my spending anyway.
All right, so Monday, look for this information and please do me a favor, when it hits, it'll be up, please take a look at it and get comments, concerns, anything back to us ASAP. And this way, come Thursday, we can move through this. All right? All right. So let's go to the last item on the on the budget. Oh, my goodness. Sorry, Joe. I was thinking of you. Last item, sorry, I woke her up. Discussion regarding town meeting attendance. I'm gonna have Stacy help tag team this. In our charter, there was never such a thing as hybrid, and in our charter was never anything of this nature. So I want to address this to make sure we're all on the same page. It is up to the council. When it comes to this, we did make some phone calls. I like to pass forward what my belief is for the council to be here. I think the same reasons that we always had is if you're in illness or in travel because of work or something of that nature. Obviously, you can call in with the hybrid system, but we got to make some decisions how we want to do that. I think as elected officials, we should be here as much as possible. If there's a reason not to be here, we have them. As long as it's excused, we're fine. So Stacy, tell me some of the things that you found calling around to your fellow clerks.
There are elected officials and mayors are in-house for meetings. They all have hybrid style meetings. They do allow their council members to call in, case of illness, work, travel. As long as the individual calling in can hear the meeting procedures. And when they're speaking, the audience and anyone in attendance can hear them and they participate in the voting. But majority of them are meeting in-house now, especially the mayor and the council.
So we're back. We're here. Jay's here. That's all matters. Really what I think the discussion tonight is, about, up to this point, if you're in travel, if you're illness, whatever it may be, you let us know as excused absence and so forth. We did not call in at that time. Now we have that opportunity is what I need y'all to decide on is how far do you want to go with that calling in and what participation of that council member, if they do call in, is really what y'all really need to discuss and determine. I'm going to start down with Greg first, if he doesn't mind. Maybe not. He's got that look on his head.
Got to think about it.
But no, seriously, we have an opportunity. I think we should be here as much as possible, but we can't make it. We all work. We have issues and challenges in life. I think this is an opportunity to be even better. So Greg, what is your thoughts?
Well, I'm old school. I think we should be here. If for some reason you have to be out of town and you can't be here, now we have the capability for you to still tie into the meeting to participate. I think that should be allowed. Not so sure how I feel about voting, though. We'll have to think about that one for a second.
All right. So
Now, yeah, I'll think about that one for a second. But I don't have a problem with it if participating in the meetings. If for some reason you're sick, you have to be in the house or you're out of town or whatever, and you can't be here. So that's how I feel about it.
Can I jump? in
I'll have to
before-
come back on the voting part by the time we're.
or it
over,
can be
but-
an excused absence, but you don't call in at all. So, I mean, there's.
Right.
There's.
If you got an
six.
excuse absence,
Right.
and for whatever reason you're traveling or whatever, you got something going on, you're out of town, you don't have to be on the meeting. I mean, you don't have to participate. But if you would like to, and you're out of town, I don't think we should stop you from calling in or zooming in a team or whatever we're using.
Right.
But the voting part is where I'm kind of stuck at.
Okay, all
So I'll think about that.
right, I'm gonna go back over here to Mickey.
So
Chomping at the
one of the
bit.
things I went to MML for and was happy to go to was that open meetings there at MML. And that was one of the questions I asked was, how does open meetings, the Opens Meeting Act treat voting in the new hybrid? And then I wanted to double check with you to make sure that what I heard at open meetings was also correct. So, because I asked at open meetings, like, so in the hybrid factor, can the council members be on Zoom and vote? And they said they can, but they must identify themselves on who they're talking, and they recommend voting by roll so that you know who voted. Like, so that way you can say like you'd call out, like when we vote by roster, when we actually ask for it. And they said that was okay. And it would, because it satisfies the open meetings, because you can hear, because of as long as they're able to hear both ways, both people here in attendance can hear them and they can hear you. But I wanted to check with you because I know you know more of the open meetings.
Well, there's
And-
no problem in the open meeting. Telephonically and to vote, in order to vote under whatever regulations the body has
Okay.
on that. I think the Open Meetings Act comes into play really is whether there's a question, whether you have a meeting, whether you have a sufficient
People.
present to form a quorum. And I will say that people attend, that if letting people vote who attend telephonically, thank you, who attend telephonically or electronically, that counts toward a quorum. And
Quorum.
so you can't then say, oh, there were only 3 people in the room, right?
Mhm.
It
Yeah,
didn't
so
count.
if we allow them on there, then that counts for the quorum.
It's gonna count. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So did you hear me, Greg, on why I went to MML for the open meetings? Okay, so I mainly went to MML for the open meetings class because I want to see how they changed it. And it was more or less, the long and short of it was, under the Open Meetings Act, if they're tuning in by Zoom, they can vote. There's nothing against it says they can't vote. And then she was clarifying that if you do allow them to vote, they do count for the quorum. So,
The question,
I'm gonna say they count, if they're there at all, they count for a quorum. Certainly if they vote. There might be a little fuzziness on if they're there, but you're not letting them vote. But I think in order not to evade the purpose of the open meetings requirement, that I would err on the side of caution there and count them toward a quorum if they're there.
so I'll finish that. Then I'm of the statement, we should be here. When we ran, this was our job. Second Thursday, that's our job. And then the other dates are extra. Great. You need to be there as much as you can. So I'm always, we should be butts in seats here. So.
all right, let me go back over to Paul.
Yeah, I'm in agreement that we should be here. I think if we do allow remote, I'd be fine with like being able to vote once per calendar year or something like that remotely, if we can even restrict it that
You could.
much. Okay. Something like that, but that's about as far as I would go.
All right,
I agree that there should be a restriction on voting because it's, I mean, we're all adults here, but if there's a situation where someone would take advantage of the fact that they're not showing up in seat and just always showing up on Zoom, there needs to be some sort of consequence, if you'd like to put it that way. So.
all right. Ken,
I'm in favor of the hybrid. And the reason why I say that is I think some of my colleagues who've been here on council remember a certain young lady used to sit back in the back seats there because it didn't have, because my wife wasn't there. And she sat through, I think, 2 of our budget meetings, which lasted almost 2.5 hours. And this was a girl who was under the age of 10.
And she was well behaved.
And she was well behaved. So I'm a father first, regardless of anything. And if there are something like that of childcare issues, or for whatever reason, our technology is advanced enough that we could use the hybrid model. Am I toward the part of that is the favorable one? No. I think we should all be here as the preferred. But there are many things that are involved in our lives that for a whatever particular reason, we cannot be here but wish to participate, which is why we wrote it, because, we want to participate. And just because of some reason we aren't going to be here, I think the option should be open. Is there a limit? I don't know what the number is, but I believe there should be a number. I just don't know what would be a good balance, because we've not really run into that, because for 2 years, none of us can get into the building. So it wasn't like you can get a number on that. So I am in favor of it. I lean toward some sort of maximum number per year, calendar year. I don't know what that number is. But that's what my thoughts.
Right.
I think the default is that we should be here in person. But I also fully support the hybrid model. Things happen. We do have a lot going on, all of us. And I think flexibility is optimal. I think we've all learned that flexibility can work as long as we all act like adults and do the right thing and don't take advantage of it. What are the excused absence reasons currently?
I don't think we have the reasons. I know the two were in travel and illness. We can look real quick.
And then so that's excused absence. That's not showing up at all, correct?
Right.
Okay. And so we don't, as far as whether or not it's okay to call in, to call in or Zoom in, we're not contemplating reasons for that. We're just talking more about, well, maybe there'll be a number like 3 times a year or something like that.
What I'm hearing is that we want butts in seats. We want to be
Yes,
here.
agree with that.
We want to be able to use the hybrid if needed. I think what you need to do is come up with a number. I don't think you should leave it open. I think we're gonna have this discussion again. It might not be over the next 4 months, but this council, it could be the new council, it could be new everything. But I think you should come up with a number of reasons, or it could be 3, it could be 25%, it could be whatever, but I think you need to come up with a number.
The percentage may be a good way to go in case we add extra meetings one year where we're really digging into the budget or something, because then it's like, hey, there's 3, and then you happen to be and we're calling them on Mondays or Saturdays or something, and it's like, look, those are my nights, I can't make it anyway. The percentage actually may be a good way to look at it. Like if we look at, we have planned X meetings per year, and you can do hybrid for X%. That may be something to think and entertain more into.
Absolutely. We need to do that, and also have a conversation about the use of camera. If you're hybrid and you're someplace, we need to make sure somebody's on camera, because it's a part of the whole situation.
That was something else in the open meetings. They talked about identifying who else may be in the room with you. Because technically then, if they're in the background, they're also attending the meeting. And if they happen to speak up and your camera picks it, that was something that came up in the open meetings. And they were talking about, they had somebody talking in the background of one of theirs, commenting on the meeting at the same time as the person who was actually on the microphone talking. And it was like a second part conversation or something like that, where there was because one of the towns had problems with that. And they were asking about how do you handle that? And then there were things where it's like, well, what if you go into closed session and stuff like that on that? And it's like, well, then they really need to be out of the room completely, because that stuff is privileged information and stuff like that. So,
Right, the use of camera.
Yeah.
Come up with a percentage that can be excused. Alyssa, what did you come up with?
Just that, thank you. Just that your charter is vague on what is a valid excuse. It says a excuse determined to be valid by the council, such as a personal illness. So that maybe could be tightened up a little.
I think we've all been around long enough to realize that times have changed. I don't think we have an issue forward to the next council. So I think the consensus is we need to be here as elected officials, but we also should come up with a percentage, or you need to come up with a percentage of excusable Zoom on camera meetings that you attend. Because if you find that you're doing more Zoom, then you need to reconsider running.
And I'm just thinking,
Can I
I know,
speak now on the voting part? So
Absolutely.
now that I've heard everybody talk, and while we were sitting here doing this, I reached out to delegate to see how they do it in General Assembly, and you absolutely have to be present. No voting if you're traveling, sick, whatever, no hybrid. You have to be in place. So again, I think we all agree that we have to be here. And like I said about the hybrid stuff, I had to think about the voting part. So I think. But Alyssa brought up a really good point too about if the person is zooming in. I believe I caught what you said as I came back in. You were saying that they're considered to be a part of the quorum, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we just don't do it.
No, I think, I'm just thinking, and many places have this, there's a difference between non-participation and participation. Let's say someone had been calling ill and you deal with, they did not show up or did not participate. It's a certain number that then the council can consider whether or not that person should be removed from the council. Is
Two.
Two
Okay.
unexcused absence.
Unexcused, is that over a year consistent? I don't know. Yeah, in a row. Okay, so now that gives the basis. Now we could go with a little higher number when you deal with people with Zoom, not including the two, because that's non-participation. Zoom is participation, but not physical participation. And maybe not to abuse that, it would be a higher number. I don't know what that is, but is to allow the flexibility. And our legislature's going on up. I don't want to deal with the archaicness of people showing up, but I think we should have a number, but it has to be higher than the unexcused two. Five.
And I think there's a consensus that we all believe everyone should be here. So I think now the issue is how do we deal with, or do we even want to have hybrid? So I stated my case, which is no.
And this right now was just talking that we could figure out. 'Cause
Yes.
The goal was the goal to have something definitive for next week
Start the
or
conversation.
just start the conversation?
No,
Because
just start the
then,
conversation.
Okay, so if the discussion is just about council members, then I would say that I think that having no hybrid meetings is okay, but I think we need to have hybrid meetings because it gives people out in town another venue, another way to attend our meetings. So if we're just talking about council participation, then
I'm not talking about we're having a hybrid meeting now. I'm talking about council members. Let's say I had to go to Texas for whatever, for work, but yet I still wanted to participate. Now, do you allow me to participate? And not consider it being a part of the quorum? Do you allow me to participate and allow me to be considered a quorum member and to vote? Now, if you want to split, the issue is with the person voting. I have no problem participating, having a person participating in conversation, but not being able to cast a vote because you're not here. Something I know we're moving forward with technology, but I think some things are away for a reason, and I believe you have to be present. That's my take.
So Greg, I just want to understand your concern with voting when you're in a hybrid, forum. I mean, practically, and first of all, we've done it. I mean, legislatures across the country have done it. And I'm not saying.
We were in a
I'm
pandemic,
not-
right?
Hold on a second. I'm not saying I'm pushing it one way or another, but practically, what is the harm in voting if you're not in the room? If you're calling in hybrid? If you're calling in, if you're zooming in, what is the harm? I mean, I see a harm in a council member doing it every month. Council meeting or something like that. But if we have a limit on the amount of times you can call in, you can zoom in, and you can only do it for, I don't know, 2 or 3 certain excused absences. I'm just trying to understand. So
I
said-
guess I could
yeah.
support that maybe too,
So
because we definitely don't want it to become.
Right, that's the concern,
norm.
right? Is that it becomes a norm, but the actual physical act of voting when you're zooming in, there's no harm in that. The harm that I think what your concern is that if it becomes a norm and a person's doing it month after month after month after month.
You could twist my arm to 2.
Let's, so we have 2 unexcused, and again, we're not going to settle this night. This is started a conversation, 2 unexcused. You could be removed from the council. I mean, that's in the charter. We agree that we want to be here. We should be here to the best of our abilities. But if you have to do hybrid, make it the max you can do in a calendar year's 3. And that's 25%.
I think we just said 2.
Was it 2?
2.
All right, so 2 hybrid. All right, so y'all want 2 in a calendar year.
I'm okay with 2. I think 3 is.
Yes.
3 is pushing it.
Are you?
Well, I want to say something about that, and you can correct me, attorney, if I'm wrong. My understanding from what's in the state law is that they don't recognize council meetings as work sessions. They just recognize meeting. They don't distinguish between council meeting and work session. This meeting.
I also look at the work session as, the work sessions are the discussion end. So it's nothing but participation. There's no business items, right? Because when you have a business item, it should be an actual meeting.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The state doesn't distinguish. It's the municipalities that separate that.
Yeah.
So you can vote and do everything you do at a council meeting, at a work session, because they don't distinguish between the two. A council meeting is a council meeting is a council meeting.
Okay.
So that's correct. Meeting.
Okay.
The same rules would apply to a quorum and to. That's correct. It doesn't mean that you as a group cannot.
We'll get there.
I'm gonna tape it right there.
That doesn't mean that you as a council, as a group, we call work sessions, and at those meetings, we are not going to transact business, right? And then you're sort of establishing that as a expectation for the public. And one of the differences for some jurisdictions is that the public can speak at a regular meeting, but not at a work session. I don't know if that's pretty much let people talk and
It's a madhouse. in
no
North Always.
opinion about that. So, but that's a distinction that some folks draw. So you can make those distinctions by rule, but absolutely, it's always going to be a meeting under the Open Meetings Act, and you have to advertise accordingly.
I actually think that that should count, because I know that in the different makeup of this council earlier on in this last 4 years, we were not counting the work sessions as an unexcused absence, just the council sessions, 2 council sessions in a row. At least that's how it was explained to me. And so we did have instances where council members really took advantage of that. So in order to, the intent of fulfilling our job, I think we should be in our seats, and I think we should limit and we should count meetings, work sessions as a meeting that you have to attend.
So we've been back up before the dais a couple times. The conversation has started. Give it some thought. Chew on it, look around, make sure you feel comfortable with it. And then we will bring this back up
And talk some more.
and make the final judgment, final call. But be prepared for that call. We're talking.
Councilwoman down there keeps twisting my arm, so.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much. Good conversation. Good conversation. Anything anybody wants to add before we adjourn? Can I have a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Nope.
All in favor, any discussion?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye. Good night.
Thank you.
City everywhere.